And we are back again. Lori Stanley, hi, welcome back. We were just joking kind of between takes that obviously we're recording both of these at the same time. We could have made it look maybe that there were different times, but we're just doing two sessions at once. So thanks again for doing a couple of chats with me today. I really appreciate it.
Likewise, I appreciate the opportunity.
So again, just in case people didn't watch the last one, I want to give a quick overview of you, your background, and then we'll start chatting a bit about project management strategy and the not-for-profit space.
Sure. So I am Lori Stanley of Lori Stanley Nonprofit Consulting, ever so uniquely named. And I am a strategic consultant or advisor focused on nonprofit organizations, but I actually do work with a number of different clients, from for-profit to the educational sector to social enterprise, charities, and even some government work. And so I empower nonprofit organizations to deepen their social impact by getting clear, getting focused, and developing strategy. And so I arrived at this stage and location in my life, having started as a direct service worker. So, you know, that very much frontline kind of experience in nonprofit.
Right.
And then eventually through progression as an executive leader, and was just very fortunate early in my years to have a number of leaders that really had that business approach to nonprofit organizational leadership. So strategy, you know, was actually something on my plate as soon as I graduated, and certainly appreciated it because I just saw its merits and its value in terms of building efficiencies and understanding where it was we were going as an organization, and then knowing what my part and my role in that was, whether I was a direct service worker, whether I was a manager, whether I was the director of service at the different kinds of organizations that I worked at. I knew what was expected of me. And then I knew what my colleagues were doing, and we were all putting this concerted effort towards a common goal. So lots of early and good exposure. And then certainly I've, over the years, sat on a number of different boards. That's where Kevin and I met. And
that's true.
Right. And we're doing some awesome work around strategy development ourselves as a board. But certainly your governance crew are big players in strategy development and strategic planning. So, you know, I've been part of them where I've been a participant. I've been part of them where I lead that process. And certainly now as a consultant, that's where a lot of my work is with the boards and the diverse strategic planning committees that they create to develop their own strategies. And now I'm on a mission to help other nonprofits, to help all nonprofits achieve their vision and missions, and loving it.
Well, that's amazing, and it's a great role. Obviously, you've got a lot of background, and you pivoted and you've worked with lots of different clients. So you have this massive knowledge, which is what we want to kind of pry into now today. I've also worked, you know, a few kind of large and small not-for-profits over the years. I think you've worked with a lot more. But what would you say is really unique about that non-profit experience versus, you know, the tech startup or the educational organization? Like what is unique in terms of challenges in developing and then operationalizing a strategy?
So what's interesting with that question is I tend to see the similarities more than I see the uniqueness.
Okay.
In terms of, you know, defining that though, in relation to your question, you know, with nonprofits, that sustainability component is always a leading factor, where of course it is with the for-profit in a different way by generating that revenue. With nonprofits, it's about where's that next pocket of money coming from. And so some organizations may have some governmental base funding, or maybe their whole funding is served through the government. But nonprofits are often faced with what does next year look like? What does next month look like? And significant lack of predictability around that, and that constant strive to ensure financial stability, to have to chase it and understand multiple stakeholders' needs and interests so that they can seek grants, seek funding, and then meet those requirements of all of those different stakeholders. Same in the for-profit, understanding your customers and their unique needs and interests and how you have to accommodate your product and your services related to that. Time and resources, I would say, are probably another big component for the nonprofit sector. And linked with that is this belief of a scarcity mindset. So I'm not sure how much of that exists in the for-profit sector, and I might identify that as an element of uniqueness. But for the nonprofit sector, the scarcity mindset that exists in terms of those available funding resources, in terms of having enough staff, which certainly has different implications these days with the challenges that are happening around staffing, but it was also there pre-pandemic. But enough staff to do and deliver the programs and the resources that the communities may need. So those are a couple of unique components that I see for the nonprofit sector.
Interesting, because I think, and again, based on my fairly limited experience with a few organizations, but maybe confirm or deny this, but the scarcity model you're talking about, it leads to this strain on the administration, and you're always, it takes so much attention to finding that next round of funding or to finding a new opportunity, and takes some energy away from the clients you're trying to serve, or maybe doesn't take the energy away, but it adds more of time and strain to your own day trying to serve the clients and also juggle the funding at the same time. That just got to make such a difficult time, to actually develop strategy, to think about what that is going to be a year from. Don't know if you're going to have funding, 2, 3, 6 months from now.
Yeah, very accurate reflection of what happens. And so people do get pulled into the day-to-day operations, or, here's this great particular opportunity for some additional funding. So they apply for that, they're successful, and then they add that on to the activities and services and responsibilities that they already have, but they don't add any complement. They don't add any staffing. They don't add any administrative support. And often it's because funders, investors really want to see the money go directly to service, and there isn't a full appreciation for that bricks and mortar kind of concept. So, there's been some advocacy around understanding that piece with potential funders and donors that, if you want efficient kind of service and focused attention and effort, you need to fund these supporting it's like a stool, and a 3-legged stool. You need to support those legs on that stool in order for it to be balanced and provide, a good foundation for sitting on. So that's an interesting analogy.
Good metaphor. It's a good metaphor.
Yeah. So that's one of the biggest challenges. The other advocacy that I see, and I'm not sure that's the right word, but maybe sort of shift or trend, is there is some invite to have the nonprofit reconsider that scarcity mindset and to appreciate abundance. And kind of like we're practicing in our own personal worlds, gratitude and abundance, and just what are the implications when you see abundance. You mentioned about nonprofits shutting down. I'm not sure if you just said that or whether it was our earlier conversations, but they're absolutely pre-pandemic. It was the previous conversation we had, that the agencies that haven't necessarily had that strategy and haven't been positioned to pivot with changes in the market. There is, I was just sat through the Ontario Nonprofits a day of networking and planning, and they had some data around the number of different nonprofits that have closed down post-pandemic. And I'm not suggesting that anybody could have prepared or strategized for that, and it's not about responsibility at any level. It's about just the challenges of that scarcity mindset, and certainly an element of scarcity, but just the value of looking at abundance. And so looking at new ways of collaborating, partnering with other organizations, looking new mergers, like I've supported organizations with their merger planning and their collaborative planning. And so just really also identifying your uniqueness and how you market that uniqueness and set up your niche in the nonprofit sector to attract those resources, whether it's staff, whether it's service users that drive your existence, whether it's funders and donors, or, you know, great board directors with unique skill sets that can certainly help advance your cause and your mission.
One element that I learned in my last role with St. John Ambulance, again, I hadn't really previously been working on that really direct service client kind of level before I really taken on this role. And I still wasn't, but I was more in tune with it and working with people who were like direct frontline workers. And it was the theory of nothing about us without us, right? And that comes down to planning for the organization, but also each individual project and getting that input directly from the people you're trying to help. Because I find, and it happens in any industry, but you know, a leader or the organization might have an idea. We want to do X. It's going to be great. We're going to serve these people, but it might not necessarily hit the notes that they need to hit with the individuals they're trying to help. What's a good way for, you know, a not-for-profit organization to make sure that they are engaging and involved with the communities they're trying to serve?
Well, having a stakeholder outreach and engagement plan in and of itself, which can be part of your strategy development process, but then you can also create that outreach and plan and apply it in other circumstances. So maybe you want it for your overall strategy development, but maybe you've decided you're going to introduce this new service or this new program. You could reach out to your stakeholders and engage them in a process to understand if in fact this will be of something that's on their mind and interest. And you make a really good point, because I can't tell you the number of times that I've sat in on, certainly led rather than sat in, but led those stakeholder engagement processes, key person interviews, focus group surveys, and the solutions are brilliant. So, you know, something that I've seen nonprofits struggling with, because, you know, I always get that forest and the trees kind of line mixed up, but you know what I'm getting.
Yeah.
But, you know, the vision isn't clear for the nonprofit. And then sometimes things get overcomplicated, and, you know, a stakeholder can just say a one sentence line and it's like, oh yeah, that's the solution. That's the strategy. I mean, you want to know as an organization how you're perceived. You want to know if it's a perception that you want to have. And then if it's not, then that in and of itself becomes a strategy for how you look at changing that perception to meet what it is you want to be seen for or known for in what it is that you're hoping to achieve as an organization.
One more question for you about all of this, but like in terms, I'm curious your thoughts on measurement. You're setting goals, you're making a strategic plan, you're making a project plan, whatever level you're operating at, but you're setting goals. Like what is, how do you engage your stakeholders in setting, you know, whether they be key performance indicators or objectives and key results, or however else you want to, you know, label it, but how do you engage them and actually make something that's measurable, so then you can say to your funders, here we were successful, you know, let us try this more. How do you kind of get that communication all into basically a sales pitch for a next round of funding? Right,
says the project manager. Surprise. It's a great question, and absolutely key. And that's part of, you know, that earlier conversation we had around execution, that those measures, those metrics, targets, there's so many different words for it, you know, whatever language it is that you choose to adopt. is key, because that's the way to understand if you're achieving what it is that you intended to. So in terms of engaging the stakeholders, it's as simple as asking. There's a number of different ways of gathering data throughout the strategy development process. So, that initial document review, looking at trends and analysis in the environment. I'm shifting a lot more to appreciative inquiry. The old adage was SWOT or PEST or PASTEL, where you're looking at political, environmental, technological, social, legal, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I've shifted a lot more to looking at SOAR, which is strength, opportunities, aspirations, and results. So that's the piece that you're looking at. So, it's a simple question. What does success look like? How will we know when we're there? As much as I have this business experience and leadership, I have a social work, sociology, and psychology background as well. And so there's this solution focused part of it where you look at, if tonight while you're sleeping, the miracle happens, what will you see? How will you notice when you awake in the morning? What tells you that you've achieved what it is that you hope to achieve? And those are just ways of getting at the detail that you're trying to have your stakeholders articulate as the outcome. And it's also a way to build that alignment again about ensuring that everybody's on the same page, and that you have people rowing the boat in the same way, and your efforts, your resources, and your energy are all focused on the same thing. So it's as simple as asking the right questions, and then setting up a review mechanism to see if those targets are being met. And if they're not, a reflection around why, and readjusting accordingly. Maybe that's not the right target. Maybe that's not the right measurement. And it's important to have a combination of qualitative and quantitative. And people have heard the acronym of SMART, that being specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, time targeted. We've all heard it. Makes great sense. But when it comes to applying it and doing it, sometimes that gets lost and maybe not as simple as it sounds. So.
Great. And I appreciate that. Very insightful. So thank you for that. But I think we'll wrap it there, Lori. So I want to say thank you so much for, again, taking your time for 2 conversations. Really appreciate it.
It's been great. Thank you.